work toward that end.
Test, 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 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Audio is good, audio is good. You can look at your counter. When you get to about 15, you can stop. Audio is good, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, audio check. Bill, how you doing?
Good morning. Joining me in this conference are Ms. Jocelyn Ross, Ms. Emma Newsom, the Program Manager of HUD, Mr. Jerry Jemison, the Atlanta representative of HUD, and Ms. Connie Curry of Community Affairs. Okay. The thing that we're really glad to report this morning is that our Community Development Block Grant Program is starting about 9 months early, and this has enabled us to get a little more money in circulation, and we're particularly glad to be able to announce that a little over $2 million of these community development funds have been recommended for Auburn Avenue revitalization efforts, and that there's 6 different projects that are recommended for almost $900,000 or almost $1 million are recommended for rehabilitation of facilities for the homeless, including the furniture bank and eviction protection. Atlanta is the 2nd city in the nation to do this program, and it's designed to protect and store furniture of families who are evicted from housing authority projects. The program will also provide assistance in preventing eviction. It's part of our overall effort to use community development block grant funds, as we have through the years, to essentially do things, particularly on a one-time basis, that we can get done in 1 year, because we never know how long this program is likely to last. But we'll be glad to answer any questions about how this money will be spent, and I'll ask my colleagues to take those questions from you. Would you like to say anything?
First question, do you expect additional money to go toward Auburn Avenue for the next series of years?
Well, I don't think we can know how much we need. We're committed to the revitalization of Auburn Avenue, and whenever there are funds available and whenever there are projects that are ready to move, and particularly when there's also a private sector commitment that would go to make the projects sustain themselves after the grant is over, we will be trying to find funds to fulfill those purposes. But it requires all of those things. I don't think we can find enough government money alone. In fact, there is not enough government money to do the total revitalization of Auburn Avenue. And so we've used government funds to try to enhance private investment. And as that private investment comes forward, we will be doing whatever we can to support it and enhance it.
Mayor, do you anticipate any of these CDBG funds will, as is, I guess, what, $6.2 million or so, have to go to underground?
No, none of these.
$700,000 for tenant improvements.
For tenant improvements in underground.
What will that entail?
You want to?
Loans and grants to minority and small businesses for improving their specific spaces in underground.
Any other questions?
Any concern, you probably don't know the answer to this yet, but any concern from the talks in Washington about the budget deficit now that some of this money will be cut in the years to come?
Would anybody from HUD like to?
We don't have any specifics. The professional organizations tend to think that the cuts may amount to about 8.5%, but there's no specific way of knowing whether that's true or not.
And that would happen in 88 or maybe not?
For FY88, and this is FY88. We have just planned on the basis of what we feel that the city would be allocated under the entitlement program. And that's what we have instructed them to plan for.
But so hanging over your head though is the thought that you may be seeing about an 8.5% cut?
Yes.
What programs would be affected by that?
If it's across the board, and if it's community development, we've instructed the city to have public hearings in such a manner that if the funds are cut, that the citizens are notified of what projects and a funding priority are to be cut first. So the projects were ranked and rated, so they would be able to tell you what projects were ranked lower that would be dropped if the funding was cut, and at what percentage.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, hey, don't go away, please. We love talking to you.
Okay.
Step right up.
All right, fine.
This afternoon, we're going to get Commissioner Chuck Williams resign. Do you have any comments on that?
Only that in our society, our Constitution essentially was designed so that all of the power of indictment is not in the hands of the government, and that there is in our society a presumption of innocence until you're proved guilty in a court of law. You know, one of the hassles I've had with Hosea and some of the people in Carver homes is an attempt to rush to judgment on the two officers involved. I think there's also something of a tendency to rush to judgment where the commissioners are involved. But I think in all of these cases, it's important for us to realize that our society requires a presumption of innocence until the parties have an opportunity to face their accusers in a court of law and give their side of the story. And that's the American way, and I would just hope we would all insist on maintaining the American way.
Over the weekend, I read your comments that you talked about there's possibly a conspiracy of these black officials. Do you feel?
Well, there's a conspiracy, I said. There's either a conscious or unconscious conspiracy, and that I was quoting really from a study that was done by Iowa State that simply says that given the number of black officials in relationship to white officials and the number of indictments, the lengthy amount of time spent on investigations, the amount of money spent investigating black officials, that it was the Iowa State study's assumption that there was a harassment of black elected officials. And I was simply quoting from that study. In fact, I think I quoted directly from that study. Mm-hmm.
What about Judge Ginsburg? Can we go to another topic? Have you been able to look at his record at all to figure out where you're going to
No, I really haven't. And Judge Ginsburg, I think, doesn't have the voluminous record of his opinions that Judge Bork had. In fact, it was Judge Bork's own writings that got me upset about his appointment and got me involved. And the more I read, the more upset I got. I have not been able to find any of Judge Ginsburg's writings as yet. And I assume we'll be taking our time. I assume the Senate will be taking their time doing an investigation of Judge Ginsburg.
Does it concern you because he doesn't have all that to look it over? And perhaps
Well, I think that's one of the things that I would hope the American Bar Association would consider. I like to think of judges, particularly Supreme Court justices, as people who've had experience in the law. And I'm not sure that Judge Ginsburg has ever really practiced law. He's been at administrative jobs and been on the court, but Supreme Court justices, I think, ought to represent hopefully a special breed of jurist with a wide variety of experiences. But I think the American Bar Association is more qualified to make an evaluation of his legal career than I am.
If they ask you to participate in the confirmation hearings as they did from work, will you take a role in this?
Well, if I found a similar kind of evidence, of course it's been my position all along that the election of 1984 of President Reagan is no more important than the election of 1986, which elected a Democratic Senate, and that I don't think that the Democratic Senate has any obligation to confirm a judge that will shift the Supreme Court to the right for the next 30, 40 years. And I don't care how qualified he is, and I don't care what President Reagan says. Elections are political. And the judicial process, I think, has always been, from the very earliest days of the Constitution, one in which politics is considered in the appointment of judges. I think that was one of the first battles that George Washington lost in the founding of the country, and there's nothing unusual. Politics is not a bad thing. Politics is a very good thing. It's what holds our country together. And when people express their political opinions, those opinions ought to be represented by their elected officials, whether it's the president elected in '84 or the Senate elected in '86. And when those are in conflict, I think it's incumbent upon both of them to get together and satisfy both sides of the electorate.
Such efforts, we can together accomplish a great deal of good in the years to come. And I would like to thank you again for inviting me for this occasion. And before concluding, I wish to introduce two of my new staffs to the Consulate General here in Atlanta. Since I took office a couple of months ago, we had two vacancies in the consulate, and I got two good guys, I should say, good lady and good man, to fill the post. Miss Crystal Boykin. Crystal is an Economic Affairs and Cultural Affairs Officer in my Consulate General. She is a graduate of University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. So any contact is most easily done through Crystal. But if you think something else, you can contact also myself. But she's much nicer than myself. And the next gentleman I would like to introduce is Mr. Terry Bell. He is another addition to the Consulate General after I took the post. He is an administrative assistant, and part-time he drives the official car of the Consulate General. He is graduate of course, Morehouse College here. Those two new additions to the Consulate General were, of course, chosen by their qualifications. They were by far the better than others, of number of those who applied for the job. But I'm also glad that we got first time, somewhat belatedly, but still it's good to start, to have black members to the Conseil General so that we can have better understanding and especially the communication with you and the society which you have established here. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
We thank Mr. Kimura for those remarks. The 15th Annual Report on Black Business, featured in Black Enterprise Magazine, has honored the nation's leading black-owned businesses and black-controlled financial institutions. The Coca-Cola distributorship, owned by Mr. Bruce Lilwin and Mr. Julius Irving, did $110 million last year. Mr. Daniel Lawson, Chicago-based distributor, also assembles markets and service transit vehicles. His firm was recently awarded a $74 million contract from the city. Here in Atlanta and other parts of the Southeast, black Americans are contributing their share in developing our economy. Individuals such as Mr. Thomas Cordy, president of AMC Mechanical Contractors, whose contract with the Hitachi Corporation was noteworthy. Mr. Jesse Hill, Jr., president of Atlanta Life. Sam Johnson of Charlotte, North Carolina, one of the BE Top 100 automobile dealers. Mr. Gregory Barranco of Barranco Pontiac GMC truck in Decatur, Georgia, which grossed approximately $41 million last year. Mr. Roosevelt Robinson of Robinson Cadillac Excalibur did $30 million last year. Mr. Herman Russell, Chief Executive Officer, H.J. Russell Company of Atlanta, has been another mainstay, of which number 3 on the list, had gross sales of $132 million last year and has ranked among the top 20 companies over the past 15 years. These firms, along with countless other smaller black-owned businesses, make up the core of the economic resources available to Japan and other countries in the world. Another indication of the confidence in America's black business is the fact that the U.S. Housing and Urban Development Secretary Samuel Pierce has revealed that over $4.3 billion in contracts, grants, cooperative agreements, and other procurement arrangements have been awarded to minority businesses during the past 6 years by HUD. This figure represents a record-breaking effort by a black cabinet member. The department also maintained a $200 million daily balance with the nation's black financial institutions during the first quarter of 1987. It has been said that if black people were a separate spending nation, they would be the second largest spending country in the world. Last year alone, black Americans spent over $2.5 billion on the U.S. economy. Of the total number of Japanese automobiles imported into the United States, black people purchased over 12% of them. 14% of the total number of Japanese televisions sold in the United States are purchased by black people. 22% of the total number of portable audio systems made in Japan are purchased by black people. If you include small items such as watches, radios, cameras, calculators, and other items such as houseware, kitchen appliances, the percentage of black people purchasing them would be astounding. Since black people purchase over 12% of the total number of Japanese-made automobiles imported into the U.S., why then are there no black-owned automobile dealerships? Thank you.